At 2:47 a.m., the baby monitor lit up, and a shadow with glowing eyes slipped through the window. A wild bobcat leapt into the crib and curled up beside the baby like it was guarding him. It came back every night, but what happened next will shock even the toughest viewers. First, let's go back to the beginning. Amanda pressed her palm against the nursery window, watching the wind rustle the bare trees beyond the glass. The forest seemed closer than it should have been, its skeletal branches like fingers reaching for the house. The morning was quiet, but something in her gut twisted with unrest. Inside, Lucas slept with the calm abandon only infants possess, his chubby arm twitching slightly, still lined with a faint scratch too delicate to bleed but too sharp to ignore. She hadn't slept much. The memory of the previous night, the sudden hiss of static on the monitor, the rhythmic thuds echoing through the speaker like slow, heavy footsteps, had kept her wired until dawn. She'd spent those hours pacing the hallway barefoot, checking windows twice, doors thrice. Poppy lay curled on the kitchen chair the whole time, undisturbed, aloof as ever. It didn't add up. When Tyler returned from his shift, he found Amanda in the nursery again, her eyes bloodshot, holding Lucas tightly. "Something's wrong," she said without turning. "It's not the cat." He wanted to reassure her, to offer a rational explanation, but he'd seen the scratches too, and they didn't match Poppy's usual play. He thought of the forest, of the recent uptick in predator sightings, foxes, coyotes, even rumors of a black bear wandering too close to the edge of town. Still, a predator crawling through a suburban window? It felt like paranoia. Until the blanket. Amanda had opened the curtains that morning to let in the soft blue of dawn, only to freeze. There, on the lawn beneath Lucas's window, lay his blanket, twisted and heavy with dew, like it had been dragged, not dropped. The window had been locked. The crib was several feet from it. No one had entered the nursery, and yet the blanket was there. They didn't speak much that day. Tyler avoided the nursery. Amanda stayed in it. Both of them danced around their fear, unwilling to give it shape. That night, they mounted the camera, an old GoPro Tyler used for trail videos, affixed high in the corner with a panoramic view of the crib. Amanda couldn't bring herself to leave the room at first, her fingers brushing the lens as if to bless it with urgency. Tyler held her shoulders. "We'll find out what's going on," he said, but the tremble in his voice betrayed him. Neither of them believed they'd be ready for what they'd see. Tyler sat hunched over the laptop, elbows digging into the kitchen table, his jaw set tight as he scrolled through the footage frame by agonizing frame. The pale wash of night vision cast the nursery in a ghostly glow. Every minute felt like a dare, a test of will. The clock in the corner ticked over to 2:47 a.m., and the room, once peaceful, shifted. The curtains stirred, not from wind, but purpose. A small gap yawned in the window frame, too smooth to be accidental. Tyler's breath hitched. From the shadows outside, something emerged with eerie precision. Not rushed, not fearful. A form, low and lithe, passed over the sill like a ribbon through water. Then, two eyes, luminous, predatory, sentient. It padded forward. No hesitation. Its coat, patterned with ashen rosettes and riverbed streaks, glimmered in the infrared haze. A bobcat, not just a creature of the wild, but of calculation. The camera caught every detail, the deliberate placement of paws, the subtle tilt of its head as it observed Lucas. No noise, no threat, just presence. Amanda stood behind Tyler now, her hand on his shoulder, fingers digging into his shirt. The room in the footage held her child and a predator in a single breath. Lucas shifted in his sleep, a drowsy murmur fluttering from his lips. The bobcat didn't flinch. Instead, it moved closer, its movement slow, reverent. Then, impossibly, it leapt into the crib with a grace that defied expectation. Amanda's gasp was silent, caught in the prison of her chest. The animal didn't strike, didn't sniff, didn't circle. It simply nestled beside the infant, tucking its body in the curve of Lucas's tiny frame. It exhaled. Stillness. Not the stillness of a hunter in wait, but of something almost domestic. Amanda staggered back from the screen, clutching her stomach. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, this isn't right." Tyler could barely speak. "It's staying. Why is it staying?" Each night they watched. The bobcat returned, always at the same hour, always following the same ritual. Quiet, watchful, as if guarding the child, or claiming him. The third night, Amanda started crying halfway through. By the fourth, Tyler began writing down times, positions, behavioral patterns. The ranger in him wanted to rationalize it. The father in him couldn't. "This isn't hunting," he said again, voice low, cracking. "This is something else." And that something, whatever it was, coiled around them like the fog rising from the pines at dusk, impossible to touch, but suffocating all the same. Amanda sat frozen, her hand still clutching the phone long after she'd dialed. The quiet on the other end, police dispatch transferring her, felt like a scream drawn out into eternity. Beside her, Tyler leaned over the laptop, lips parted, brows furrowed so deeply they threatened to carve permanence into his face. The nursery footage played again in grainy monochrome. There was no mistaking it this time. At exactly 3:11 a.m., a figure emerged from the side of the house. Dressed in dull gray overalls, boots silent against the grass, the man moved with the deliberateness of someone who had done this before. No hesitation, no fear, just routine. The side of his hood hung low, but not low enough to hide the sharp, narrow profile of his jaw, the oily slick of dark hair pressed flat under his cap. He didn't look into the camera. He knew where it was. Amanda's breath snagged as she saw it. The moment the crib shifted. Not a sudden jerk, but a gradual, almost imperceptible tug, the kind that might have been missed entirely without Tyler's obsessive time-stamping. The crib, still holding Lucas, slid an inch toward the window. The man's gloved hands retreated. Then darkness again. They had bolted into the nursery then, rifle in hand, hearts a maelstrom of terror and adrenaline. But there had been nothing. Lucas slept peacefully, as if the world hadn't tilted sideways. The window was locked, no footprints, no sound. Back at the table, Tyler scrubbed through previous nights. That's when they saw it. Each night, before the bobcat appeared, a hand, gloved, quick, clinical, entered the frame just long enough to place something soft on the mattress. Meat, always the same, chicken or turkey, sliced into morsels, deliberately positioned near Lucas's legs and arms. It wasn't affection, it wasn't protection, it was training. And the bobcat, once thought a ghostly anomaly of nature, was a tool. Obedient, conditioned, domesticated. The faint shimmer of a microchip embedded beneath its neck fur caught the light for a single frame. A name tag was missing, but it didn't need one. Tyler's breath left him like a punch. "Roger Mays," he said grimly. "That's him." He'd seen the mugshot in a recent bulletin, ex-con, known wildlife trafficker, last seen near the National Forest border. Tyler had personally logged evidence from Mays's abandoned camp, steel traps, meat hooks, syringes laced with tranquilizers, the kind used on large mammals, the kind that make animals obey. Amanda's hand trembled as she clutched the phone again. "He wasn't just watching," she whispered. "He was preparing." Her voice cracked. To take Lucas. No more shadows, no more second guessing. This was real. This was orchestrated, and they were running out of time. The woods were silent that morning, cloaked in a fog so thick it seemed to muffle not just sound, but memory. The forest rangers moved like ghosts, scanning the underbrush with flashlights and sidearms, flanked by local police who kept their radios low and their grips tight. The trail began behind an old service road, just beyond the tree line, an almost imperceptible path worn by tire tracks and padded paws. They found the first crate under a collapsed lean-to, camouflaged with branches and strips of canvas. Inside, a tranquilized deer, chest rising and falling in slow, forced rhythm. Nearby, a second crate, metal-lined and fitted with foam, a chilling prototype for smuggling something small. Too small. Syringes lay scattered in a rusted toolbox, capped, clean, unnervingly organized. Beside them, a torn field manual on animal behavior marked with annotations. On the spine, operant conditioning. The manhunt ended not in a shootout, not with resistance, but with a rustle of leaves and the hollow echo of surrender. Roger Mays was found curled inside a storm drain just half a block from the Brooks home, mud-caked and wide-eyed, clinging to a ragged knapsack that held scraps of raw meat and a GPS collar. He didn't run, he didn't speak, until Tyler arrived, standing behind the sheriff, eyes locked on the man who had turned his family into prey. Only then did Mays speak, voice flat, like he was explaining weather. It was clean, no prints, no noise. Cats carry kittens all the time. The words sank into Tyler like acid. The Bobcat, found later wandering near the forest edge, was darted by wildlife officials. They moved quickly, gently. It didn't resist. In the rehabilitation center, scans confirmed the chip, registered under a false veterinary clinic, implanted illegally. The cat was scarred, both physically and behaviorally. It would never be released again. But Amanda insisted, even through the aftermath, that the animal bore no malice. It was just another victim, she told the news crews later. Used, broken, like we almost were. Amanda began therapy. Tyler resigned from the Ranger Corps that same month, trading maps and boots for power tools. He reinforced every window, sealed every vent, installed thermal sensors that blinked red with even the faintest heat signature. Their home became a fortress, not just against intruders, but against the memory of vulnerability. The community responded with something unexpected: kindness. Neighbors dropped off groceries, installed lights along the road, raised funds for Lucas's future. It became not just a rescue, but a reckoning, a communal understanding that danger wears many skins. The footage, the full, unedited version, was eventually submitted to federal authorities. What began as home surveillance became evidence, then precedent. The case was added to the FBI's Behavioral Sciences Archive, studied in training rooms under the label Wildlife-Assisted Abduction. But most would come to know it simply as the Bobcat case. And while life moved on, it didn't forget. To this day, when the wind rattles the shutters in that sleepy North Carolina town, even the bravest pause. They glance toward their children's windows, and for just a moment they remember that monsters don't always knock. Sometimes they crawl.